February 8, 1971, Madison Square Garden. More than 21,000 fans packed the arena so tightly that fire marshals threatened to shut down the show. The electricity in the air was almost visible. Pedro Morales has just become the Worldwide Wrestling Federation World Heavyweight Champion. And in doing so, he shattered a barrier that had stood since wrestling's earliest days. A soft-spoken Puerto Rican from a tiny Caribbean island, a man who stood just 5'10" and weighed 235 pounds, had just become the face of America's biggest wrestling promotion. What followed was a 1,027-day reign that remains the longest by any Latino wrestler in history. He did not have the size of Bruno Sammartino. He did not have the charisma of superstar Billy Graham. What Pedro Morales had was something more valuable: authenticity that connected with every working-class fan in the arena. A quiet dignity that made him beloved not just by Puerto Rican fans, but by anyone who had ever been told they were not good enough to succeed. This is the story of Pedro Morales. Pedro Antonio Morales was born on October the 22nd, 1942, on Culebra, a small island municipality approximately 17 miles east of Puerto Rico's main island. If you have never heard of Culebra, you are not alone. The island spans just 7 miles long and 3 miles wide. In the 1940s, it had no paved roads, limited electricity, and a population of just a few hundred people. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else. Morales would later claim that 65% of the island's population had some bloodline connection to his family. His father, Pedro Morales Sr., would later work as a mental health aide after emigrating to the mainland. His mother, Theodora Morales, was an enterprising businesswoman who operated a restaurant on the neighboring island of Vieques and later established a bakery on Culebra. She was the financial brain of the family and remained a trusted advisor on money matters throughout Pedro's career. Years later, when Pedro was earning thousands of dollars per night as champion, it was his mother who helped him invest wisely. The family was part of an extensive network. Morales had 85 cousins on his mother's side alone. His childhood was shaped by the modest realities of mid-century Culebra. Fishing in the Caribbean waters, swimming in the pristine beaches that tourists would not discover for another generation. The physical resilience that came from outdoor island life. There was no television to watch wrestling, no gym to train in, just the natural strength that came from a childhood spent working and playing under the tropical sun. However, his mother recognized that opportunities on Culebra were limited. There was no high school on the island. If Pedro was going to make something of himself, he needed to leave. She sent him to live with an aunt in Brooklyn, New York, specifically the East New York neighborhood, to complete his high school education. It was a decision that would change the course of wrestling history. At age 13, a friend of his sister introduced him to members of a wrestling club, sparking a passion that would define his life. He began amateur wrestling in the 160-pound division, practicing both at his high school and at a local YMCA. During this period, he became captivated by professional wrestling, watching and being inspired by the legendary tag team of Miguel Perez Sr. and Antonino Rocca. These were Puerto Rican wrestlers who were already stars in New York. For the first time, young Pedro saw people who looked like him, who spoke like him, succeeding at the highest levels of professional wrestling. An intriguing what-if moment came at age 16, when Morales was drafted by the Leones de Ponce in Puerto Rico's Professional Baseball League first-year draft. Baseball was the national sport of Puerto Rico. Being drafted was an honor, but Morales declined the opportunity because he was living outside Puerto Rico, instead choosing to pursue professional wrestling. He gained 20 pounds of muscle to prepare for a career in the squared circle. It was a gamble that would pay off beyond his wildest dreams. In 1959, at just 17 years old, Morales began training under a wrestler known as Barba Roja, which means red beard, in the New York area. His father had to sign special documentation required by the New York State Athletic Commission for his underage son to begin competing professionally. It was an act of faith from a family that believed in their son's dream. Morales made his professional debut in 1959, reportedly at Sunnyside Gardens in Queens, New York, defeating Howard Levine, who performed under the ring name Buddy Gilbert. The building was a far cry from Madison Square Garden, a small arena that held maybe a few hundred fans. But everyone has to start somewhere. Before becoming world champion, Morales spent over a decade honing his craft across North America's territorial wrestling system. This was the old days of professional wrestling, when there was no worldwide wrestling federation monopoly, when every major city had its own promotion and its own champions. From 1959 to 1962, he competed throughout the tri-state area and the mid-Atlantic states, particularly Virginia and North Carolina. He was learning his craft one match at a time, one territory at a time. By 1963 and 1964, he had his first run in the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, performing tag team matches regularly with Miguel Perez Sr., his childhood idol. He teamed with Vittorio Apollo against legendary teams like the Fabulous Kangaroos. In June 1963, he worked alongside Bruno Sammartino, Bobo Brazil, and other top stars. He was getting an education in main event wrestling from the very best in the business. His true breakthrough came in Los Angeles with Worldwide Wrestling Associates from 1965 to 1969. California had a massive Hispanic population, and promoters quickly realized that Pedro Morales could be a star. There, Morales won the WWA World Heavyweight Championship twice. First, defeating the Destroyer, Dick Beyer, on March 12, 1965, for a 133-day reign. Then recapturing it on October 17, 1965, for a 292-day reign. He also won the WA World Tag Team Championship 6 times with various partners including Luis Hernandez, Mark Lewin, Ricky Romero, and Victor Rivera. His 425 total days as WWWA World Champion established him as a main event level talent. In San Francisco, he teamed with Pepper Gomez to capture the NWA World Tag Team Championship in 1967 and 1968. He then spent 1969 and 1970 in Hawaii, winning the NWA Hawaii Heavyweight Championship, the NWA North American Heavyweight Championship defeating Gene Kiniski, and 3 NWA Hawaii Tag Team Championships. By 1970, Pedro Morales had proven himself in every territory that would book him. He was ready for the biggest stage of all. Morales returned to the Worldwide Wrestling Federation in November 1970, and events moved quickly. On January 7, 1971, he won the Worldwide Wrestling Federation United States Championship by defeating Freddie Blassie in a tournament final. Just 11 days later, on January 18, 1971, the wrestling world was stunned when Ivan Koloff ended Bruno Sammartino's legendary, nearly 8-year reign with a knee drop off the top rope. The arena went silent. Fans wept openly. Bruno Sammartino had been champion for so long that many fans could not remember a time when he did not hold the title. But promoter Vince McMahon Sr. had a plan. Koloff was not meant to be a long-term champion. He was a transitional champion, a role designed to move the title from Sammartino to Morales without having two beloved babyfaces wrestle each other for the belt. Sammartino needed time off from the grueling champion's schedule, and Vince McMahon Sr. had identified Morales as his ideal successor. What followed, 21 days later, became one of wrestling's most significant moments. On February 8, 1971, at Madison Square Garden, Pedro Morales faced Ivan Koloff for the Worldwide Wrestling Federation World Heavyweight Championship. The atmosphere was electric. 21,812 fans packed the arena, setting a new wrestling attendance record with a gate of $86,885, also a new record. A famous line attributed to the McMahon family said, "Who cares if he's not 6'5"? The Garden sounds like San Juan when he walks out." The match lasted 23 minutes and 18 seconds. In the finish, Koloff had Morales in a waistlock near the corner. Morales kicked off the top turnbuckle, sending both men falling backwards with shoulders down. As the referee counted, Morales lifted his shoulder at the count of 2 while Koloff remained on the mat. Pedro Morales was the new Worldwide Wrestling Federation World Heavyweight Champion. He was the first Latino to hold a world title in a major American wrestling promotion. The historical significance cannot be overstated. Bruno Sammartino himself came to the ring afterward to congratulate Morales and symbolically pass the torch. The two men embraced in the center of the ring while 21,000 fans cheered. It was a moment that told every Puerto Rican fan in attendance that they belonged, that one of their own could stand at the very top of professional wrestling. Pedro Morales held the Worldwide Wrestling Federation World Heavyweight Championship for 1,027 days, from February 8, 1971 to December 1, 1973. This remains the fifth longest reign in company history and the longest by any Latino champion to this day. Only Bruno Sammartino's 2 reigns, Bob Backlund's reign, and Hulk Hogan's first reign were longer. What makes this reign even more impressive was his drawing power. Wrestling historian analysis reveals that Morales actually drew more consistently at Madison Square Garden than Bruno Sammartino had during his first title run. He sold out the arena 16 times in less than 3 years, and apparently never drew below 15,000 fans. A consistency Bruno sometimes lacked between 1965 and 1969. The critics who said a Puerto Rican could not draw in New York were proven spectacularly wrong. His first defense came on March 15, 1971, when he defeated Blackjack Mulligan before 21,430 fans. It was an impressive crowd, and it came without Bruno's support on the card. This was Pedro's crowd now. On July 24, 1971, Morales and Gorilla Monsoon defeated Luke Graham and Tarzan Tyler in front of 21,912 fans, generating wrestling's first ever $100,000 gate in New York. Professional wrestling had reached a new financial milestone, and Pedro Morales was at the center of it. The champion faced a murderer's row of challengers. Stan Stasiak began what would become a 2.5-year feud with an August 30, 1971 match that ended in a blood stoppage draw. Their Texas death match on October 25, 1971 drew a new record, 22,070 fans. In November and December 1971, consecutive matches against Freddie Blassie, including a Roman gladiator match, set 3 consecutive Madison Square Garden attendance records. Every month brought a new challenger. Every month Pedro Morales found a way to survive. In 1972, Morales defended against Professor Toru Tanaka, Baron Mikkel Shikluna, King Curtis Iauchea, Pampero Firpo, and George the Animal Steele. His September 2, 1972 defense against Ernie Ladd drew 21,819 fans on a card that marked Bruno Sammartino's return to Madison Square Garden. The Italian community and the Puerto Rican community united to fill the garden to capacity. The most historically significant match of Morales' title reign came on September 30, 1972 at Shea Stadium. In wrestling's first major babyface versus babyface main event, Worldwide Wrestling Federation champion Pedro Morales faced former champion Bruno Sammartino. This was unprecedented. 2 beloved heroes facing each other for the world title. How do you book such a match without turning one of them into a villain? The setup was ingenious. During a tag match against Mr. Fuji and Professor Toru Tanaka, Fuji threw salt into Sammartino's eyes, blinding him so he accidentally attacked Morales. Tanaka then blinded Morales with salt. Both babyfaces unknowingly fought each other, creating a rivalry without either man being at fault. It was brilliant booking that allowed both men to remain heroes. Billed as the match of the century and the Showdown at Shea, the match went 75 minutes before ending in a draw due to New York's 11 p.m. curfew ordinance. 22,508 fans witnessed history. For 75 minutes, the 2 best wrestlers in the company traded holds and near falls. Neither man could gain a decisive advantage. When the curfew bell rang, both men were still standing, still fighting, neither willing to give an inch. Morales would later call it the greatest match of his career. After the draw, both men embraced in the center of the ring, ending the manufactured rivalry and reforming their alliance. The fans gave them a standing ovation. It was a moment of pure sportsmanship that showed professional wrestling at its finest. Morales' historic reign ended on December 1, 1973 at the Philadelphia Arena against Stan Stasiak, who was managed by the Grand Wizard. The match lasted 17 minutes and 42 seconds. Contrary to popular belief, Stasiak did not win with his famous heart punch. In the finish, when Morales executed a back suplex, Stasiak was able to lift his shoulder while both of Morales' shoulders remained on the mat. Referee Barney Solomon counted the pinfall. The finish was so controversial that no announcement was made in the building that Stasiak had won the title. Promoters feared a riot. They knew how much Pedro meant to his fans, especially the Puerto Rican community that had adopted him as their hero. Ring announcer Buddy Wagner simply said, "Let's hear it for a great champion, Pedro Morales." The title change was not announced until the following Saturday on television. The reasoning was purely business. The Worldwide Wrestling Federation wanted Bruno Sammartino as champion again, but refused to have Sammartino defeat the beloved Morales. Having Bruno pin Pedro would have divided the fan base. Stasiak held the title just 9 days before losing to Bruno at Madison Square Garden on December 10, 1973. Stasiak described his title reign as the happiest 9 days of his life. He had served his purpose as a transitional champion, just as Ivan Koloff had done nearly 3 years earlier. While Morales' world title feuds were memorable, his rivalry with Don Magnificent Muraco over the Intercontinental Championship stands as one of wrestling's most intense programs. According to the Cage Match Wrestling database, the two men faced each other 71 documented times. 71 matches against the same opponent. That is not a rivalry. That is a war. The feud began when Muraco, managed by the Grand Wizard, defeated Morales for the Intercontinental title on June 20, 1981 in Philadelphia, using his infamous taped thumb to gain an illegal advantage. On November 23, 1981, at Madison Square Garden, Morales regained the title in a brutal Texas death match. In one of wrestling's great ironic finishes, Morales used brass knuckles that Muraco had dropped to knock him out for the pin at 13 minutes and 33 seconds. The villain had been beaten with his own weapon. Their matches were bloody, hate-filled affairs featuring heavy use of weapons. They used brass knuckles, chairs, and ring posts. Muraco would crotch Morales on guardrails and target his legs with vicious kicks. Morales would tie Muraco in the ropes and bite his wounds until blood flowed freely. These were not technical wrestling exhibitions. These were fights. The kind of matches that left both men scarred and the audience drained. Muraco ended Morales' 425-day second reign on January 22, 1983 at Madison Square Garden, completing a series of 3 intercontinental title changes between them in just over 18 months. The rivalry defined the Intercontinental Championship for an entire ERA. Years later, both men would speak respectfully of each other. They had made each other better. They had made each other stars. That is what a great rivalry does. Pedro Morales achieved something unprecedented when he won the Intercontinental Championship from Ken Patera on December 8, 1980, at Madison Square Garden. With that victory, he became the first wrestler in World Wrestling Federation history to hold the World Heavyweight Championship, the Intercontinental Championship, and the Tag Team Championship. He was the first ever Triple Crown champion. He had won the World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Championship with Bob Backlund on August 9, 1980, at the Showdown at Shea before 26,295 fans, defeating the Wild Samoans, Arthur and Sika, in a 2 out of 3 falls match. However, that reign lasted just 1 day. World Wrestling Federation rules at the time prohibited any champion from holding 2 championships simultaneously, and since Backlund was World Wrestling Federation Heavyweight Champion, the tag titles were vacated. Despite the 1-day reign, it counted toward the Triple Crown. Morales held this unique distinction alone for nearly 12 years until Bret Hitman Hart became the second Triple Crown winner on October 12, 1992. For over a decade, Pedro Morales stood alone as the only man to achieve this milestone. Adding his Worldwide Wrestling Federation United States Championship, won January 7, 1971, Morales held every World Wrestling Federation and Worldwide Wrestling Federation title that existed during his era. Morales' 2 Intercontinental Championship reigns totaled 619 combined days. That was a record that stood for over 40 years until Gunther surpassed it in February 2024. His second reign of 425 days was the second longest single Intercontinental Championship reign ever, behind only Honky Tonk Man's 454-day reign. During his first reign, from December 8, 1980 to June 20, 1981, Morales defended against Sergeant Slaughter, Killer Khan, Stan Hansen, and Greg Valentine, before losing to Don Muraco. He became the first wrestler to win the Intercontinental Championship twice when he recaptured it from Muraco in November 1981. His second reign, from November 23, 1981 to January 22, 1983, featured numerous defenses against Greg Valentine. Their feud included brass knuckles matches, Texas death matches, and street fights. He also defended against superstar Billy Graham, Adrian Adonis, Bob Orton Jr., and Jimmy Snuka. Every defense was a battle. Every defense added to his legend. While the Worldwide Wrestling Federation and the World Wrestling Federation were Morales' primary home, his career extended across multiple territories. After leaving the Worldwide Wrestling Federation in 1976, Morales worked approximately 1 year for the American Wrestling Association as a top-of-the-card performer and primary challenger to world champion Nick Bockwinkel. He feuded with the Super Destroyer and Lord Alfred Hayes, and regularly teamed with Peter Maivia, the grandfather of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. In championship wrestling from Florida from 1977 to 1978, Morales won the NWA Florida Tag Team Championship twice with Rocky Johnson, the father of The Rock. He also won the NWA Florida Southern Heavyweight Championship and the NWA Florida Television Championship. He challenged Harley Race for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship on October 8 and December 6 of 1977, but was unsuccessful. The NWA World title would remain the one major championship that eluded him. From 1975 to 1976, in San Francisco, teaming with Pat Patterson, Morales won the NWA World Tag Team Championship, San Francisco version, holding it for 147 days after defeating the Invaders. San Francisco celebrated his success. Morales returned to his homeland, Puerto Rico, for the World Wrestling Council from 1983 to 1984, winning the World Wrestling Council World Tag Team Championship with Carlos Colon and the World Wrestling Council North American Heavyweight Championship twice, totaling 371 days. On April 23, 1983, he challenged Ric Flair for the NWA World Championship in his first World Wrestling Council appearance. Wrestling in Puerto Rico meant wrestling in front of his own people. It was a homecoming decades in the making. In 1978, Morales toured New Japan Pro Wrestling, participating primarily in tag team matches against top stars including Antonio Inoki, Seiji Sakaguchi, and Tatsumi Fujinami, often partnering with Peter Maivia or Chavo Guerrero. His fame had spread across the Pacific. Japanese fans who respected technical wrestling and fighting spirit above all else embraced Pedro Morales as one of their own. Pacific fans welcomed him. After declining invitations for nearly a decade, Morales was finally honored at World Wrestling Council's Aniversario 40 event on September 21, 2013 in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Standing in the ring in his homeland, surrounded by the fans who had followed his career for over 50 years, Pedro Morales received the tribute he deserved. It was one of the last major public appearances of his career. Tribute and respect marked the night. From 1985 to 1987, Morales was transitioning down the card, defeating lower card talent but losing to rising stars like Randy Savage, Jake Roberts, Harley Race, and Honky Tonk Man. The torch was being passed to a new generation. His only WrestleMania appearance came at WrestleMania 2 in 1986, participating in a 20-man invitational battle royal. The torch was clearly being passed. Morales nearly won the King of the Ring tournaments in both 1985 and 1986. In 1985, Don Muraco eliminated him in the semi-finals. Their rivalry continued even as both men aged. In 1986, he advanced to the finals, defeating Rudy Diamond, Mike Rotundo, and Nikolai Volkov, before losing to Harley Race. So close to one more championship, but it was not meant to be. His final in-ring appearance was November 16, 1987, participating in a battle royal. At 44 years old, he quietly retired after nearly 28 years of competition. There was no farewell tour, no final match at Madison Square Garden. Pedro Morales simply stepped away from the ring the same way he had performed in it, with quiet dignity. After retirement, Pedro Morales worked as a road agent for the World Wrestling Federation, then transitioned to Spanish-language commentary. He became the first Puerto Rican to perform that role for an international wrestling promotion. While English was his second language and he sometimes struggled with interviews in English as a wrestler, he excelled behind the microphone speaking his native tongue. Pedro Morales found a second career as a Spanish voice in wrestling. In the 1990s, he joined World Championship Wrestling as a Spanish-language announcer, working alongside Miguel Alonso to narrate WCW Monday Nitro and pay-per-view events. His pioneering work has since been continued by commentators like Jack Melendez and Willie Urbina. Every Spanish-language wrestling broadcast today exists because Pedro Morales proved there was an audience for it. Morales was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame class of 1995, with fellow Puerto Rican Savio Vega delivering the induction speech. In a unique twist of history, Morales remains the only WWE Hall of Famer who did not attend his own induction ceremony. His contractual obligations as the WCW Spanish announcer at the time created an unavoidable conflict. Even his Hall of Fame induction was unconventional. He received additional recognition from the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame and Museum in 2015, the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame in 2017, and the Ring Chronicle Hall of Fame in 2000. In 1972, Pro Wrestling Illustrated named him Wrestler of the Year. Pedro met Karen Johnson in 1965 when she attended a wrestling event in Long Beach, California. They dated for 5 years while she worked as a teacher, and his career took him around the world. They married in 1972 in a small ceremony in Puerto Rico, attended only by family and a judge. Their marriage lasted 52 years until his death. In an industry notorious for failed relationships, Pedro and Karen proved that lasting love was possible. Their son, Pedro Morales Jr., was born in 1974. Tragically, Pedro Jr. predeceased his father, passing away in 2014. When their son was ready for kindergarten, the family bought a house in central New Jersey, with Karen teaching at Avenel Street Elementary School. They permanently settled in Woodbridge Township, New Jersey. Morales' mother, Teodora, had instilled financial wisdom in him, and his widow confirmed that he invested his wrestling earnings wisely in stocks, bonds, and properties, allowing them to live comfortably. Unlike so many wrestlers who squandered their earnings, Pedro planned for the future. In retirement, Morales adopted gardening as a hobby, particularly cultivating tomatoes. Despite physical limitations from his career, he remained a frequent visitor to the club gym in Woodbridge. He traveled to Puerto Rico multiple times each year to visit family. The island boy never forgot where he came from. Pedro Morales died on February 12, 2019. He died in Perth Amboy, New Jersey, near his Woodbridge Township home, at 76 years old. The cause of death was complications from Parkinson's disease, which had progressed to the point where he could no longer travel to Puerto Rico in his final years. According to his widow Karen in a 2021 interview, he also battled cancer multiple times and had cardiac afflictions. His health declined significantly in 2017, and he had been hospitalized for the final 2 weeks before his passing. Services were held at Costello Griner Funeral Home in Woodbridge, New Jersey, on February 15, 2019. Bob Backlund was among those who attended to pay respects to his former tag team partner. WWE released an official statement expressing condolences. Bret Hart tweeted goodbye to a great friend, one of the kindest, wisest wrestlers I ever knew. He added that when he first started in WWE, Pedro told him, "You cannot stop talent." I followed those words for the rest of my career. Ric Flair remembered his signature phrase, "I'm ready for any kind of action." The Iron Sheik called him one of the best ever. Excellent worker, excellent babyface, excellent businessman, excellent human being. Pedro Morales' significance extends far beyond championship statistics. He was a cultural bridge for marginalized Latino fans in New York City's growing Hispanic population during the 1970s. When Stan Stasiak beat him for the title in Philadelphia, promoters feared a genuine riot if the result was announced. The ring announcer simply asked fans to applaud the departing champion. That is how much he meant to his people. Conan acknowledged Morales alongside Carlos Colon, Tito Santana, Mil Mascaras, and the Guerrero family as Latinos who paved the way within the wrestling industry. Rey Mysterio has credited Morales as a key inspiration. World Wrestling Council founder Thomas Marin Rodriguez, known as El Martillo, considers him the best Puerto Rican wrestler in history. Pedro Morales overcame poverty, distance, and the prejudices of his era to become something unprecedented. He became a Puerto Rican world heavyweight champion when such a thing seemed impossible. He held that title for nearly 3 years, drew record crowds at Madison Square Garden, and did so with quiet dignity rather than bombast. He was the first Triple Crown champion, a record holder whose intercontinental title days lasted until 2024, and a pioneer whose path made every subsequent Latino wrestling star's journey a little easier. When he passed at 76, the wrestling world lost not just a champion, but a man who proved that talent, perseverance, and class could transcend every barrier placed before him. Pedro Morales was born on a tiny island with no roads. He died as the first Latino world champion in wrestling history. He was the first Triple Crown champion. He was the forever champion. His signature phrase was simple, "I'm ready for any kind of action." And for nearly 3 decades, Pedro Morales proved those words were true. He was ready for Ivan Koloff. He was ready for Bruno Sammartino. He was ready for Don Muraco. He was ready for every challenge the wrestling business threw at him. He met every challenge with the same quiet dignity that defined his entire career. That is the legacy of Pedro Morales. Not just championships and records, though he had plenty of both. His legacy is that he opened a door that can never be closed. Every Latino wrestler who main events a pay-per-view, every Puerto Rican who holds a world title, every Hispanic kid who dreams of becoming a wrestling champion, they all owe a debt to the man from Culebra who proved it was possible. Like and subscribe for more Territory wrestling documentaries. Until next time.